I love castles. Now this isn't a castle, this is a neat little Airbnb in Northamptonshire. It's a breathtaking folly castle surrounded by gorgeous scenery and nature. However, were it a historical castle, I reckon they wouldn't let me park my Vauxhall Astra in front of it to block the view. Aside from endorsing a cosy spot to rest a weary traveller's head, whilst away I did actually get to visit a mighty castle. This is Kenilworth Castle. Kenilworth Castle is located in the town of Kenilworth in Warwickshire, England, only a few miles south of Coventry. The ruins today were constructed over the course of centuries. However, Kenilworth was originally constructed in the early 1120s under the supervision of Geoffrey de Clinton, Lord Chamberlain and Treasurer to King Henry I. It's uncertain how the original keep would have looked, but it's believed to have been a motte surrounded by wooden structures. Over the centuries, bits got added, and today we're left with some of the most surreal ruins that I've seen in England. Tall structures with mighty views of the surrounding lands towering over the gentle slopes they're situated upon, and some delightful gardens to complete the overall aesthetic. This place is truly impressive, and it's impossible to imagine it not having a rich history spanning centuries. So let's dive into that. As I was saying, the original keep was constructed in the early 1120s under Geoffrey de Clinton, Lord Chamberlain and Treasurer to King Henry I. In the early 12th century, Clinton had something of a rivalry with Roger de Beaumont, Earl of Warwick, the owner of the nearby Warwick Castle, situated only a few short miles to the south of Kenilworth. But of course that place is a video in itself. Geoffrey de Clinton appeared to have lost favour with the monarch by 1130 as he was tried for treason, only to be acquitted shortly afterwards. He would die between 1133 and 1134 and be succeeded by his son Geoffrey de Clinton. Geoffrey was only a minor when he inherited the estates at Stukely and Aston Clinton, though Kenilworth would see little attention for some time. Under King John, who ruled from 1199 to 1216, Kenilworth would once again see construction. Due to John's excommunication in 1208, he began enhancing and rebuilding major royal castles, improving their fortifications. Kenilworth was among the few that saw these improvements. However, Kenilworth Castle's defining moment came during the 13th century, with the siege of Kenilworth Castle taking place in 1266. Also known as the Great Siege of 1266, it lasted 6 months from June until December during the Second Barons' War. This was an English civil war that was fought between 1264 and 1267 between Simon de Montfort and the Royals, led by Prince Edward, who would later become Edward I of England. The siege at Kenilworth marks one of only few castles to be attacked during this conflict. Kenilworth had a unique structure and was heavily defended. As a result, it was nothing short of formidable. Its best noted defences was a dam to the south of the castle that supported the causeway from the entrance to the bailey and keep, an artificial lake that protected the south and west sides of the castle, making a land approach incredibly difficult, and a second pool along the east side of the causeway which granted water protection, and the land to the north was full of ditches, making an approach from that direction a treacherous endeavour. Thus, the siege here at Kenilworth was a colossal undertaking. Initially intended for December of 1625, it was delayed until the 21st of June the following year. The castle sported a garrison as large as 1,200 men. On the outside stood the royal forces, summoned by King Henry III and his sons. The royal forces used everything they could to try to gain access to the castle. Trebuchets were deployed, wooden towers, barges were sent to Kenilworth all the way from Chester to attack via lake. Nothing seemingly worked. In the end, however, the siege was a success for the royal forces, as the occupants of Kenilworth were running out of food and suffering from rampant disease. Time proved to be the most valuable weapon in the royal arsenal, and all they had to do was wait it out. Kenilworth surrendered on the 13th of December 1266, accepting the terms of the Dictum of Kenilworth, designed to reconcile the rebels of the Second Barons' War with England's royal government. Henry III would grant Kenilworth Castle to his son Edmund Crouchback in the following year of 1267. Edmund would host many tournaments here in the later years of the 13th century. Upon his death, the castle would fall into the hands of Edmund's son, Thomas, Earl of Lancaster in 1298, becoming the primary castle of the Lancaster estates. Due to Thomas's marriage with Alice de Lacy, Lancaster became the richest nobleman in England. Kenilworth was both a social and financial centre for Thomas, building the first Great Hall between 1314 and 1317, constructing a water tower along the Outer Bailey and increasing the size of the chase. Thomas would increasingly find himself opposing King Edward II, leading to conflict and his capture and execution around 1322. Kenilworth would see further renovations, however. By the 15th century, many royal castles were left to fall into disrepair. Kenilworth Mine still found itself in use, forming a late medieval palace fortress. Henry IV brought Kenilworth back into royal ownership in 1399 and made extensive use of the site. Henry V would also utilise Kenilworth relatively extensively, but had stronger preferences elsewhere. Kenilworth would remain firmly under the control of the royals until 1553, when it was given to John Dudley, 1st Duke of Northumberland, though he would be executed the very same year under Queen Mary for favouring Lady Jane Grey for the throne. The castle would be restored to Dudley's son, Robert, Earl of Leicester in 1563, whose power, wealth and status depended heavily on maintaining favour with Queen Elizabeth I, who was 4 years into her reign. Modernisation at Kenilworth continued under the Earl of Leicester with the objective of attracting the interest of Elizabeth during her tours around the country. Elizabeth would visit in 1566 and 1568, and would also view Kenilworth in 1572 and 1575. Leicester's eagerness to impress the Queen was perceived as an attempt to convince her to marry him, thus no expense was spared on renovating Kenilworth. Elizabeth would bring an entourage of dozens of barons and hundreds of staff for a visit that would last 19 days in 1575. Leicester would entertain the Queen and the neighbouring region with fireworks, bear-beating, mystery plays, hunting, banquets and pageants that cost him a fortune and almost bankrupted him. The event was considered a success as it was the longest stay at such a property during any of Elizabeth's tours. However, the Queen decided not to marry the Earl of Leicester. When the Earl of Leicester passed away in 1588, he had no legitimate heir and was heavily in debt, and thus Kenilworth Castle was valued at £10,401. The castle would, however, find its way into the ownership of his illegitimate son, Robert Dudley, by 1590. During the 17th century, Kenilworth was used by Charles as something of a base of operations when the First English Civil War broke out in 1642. Charles used Kenilworth on his advance to Edge Hill as a base for raids on parliamentary strongholds in the region. After the battle at Edge Hill, however, the garrison at Kenilworth was withdrawn, and soon after garrisoned by parliamentary forces. At the end of the English Civil War, Parliament ordered the slighting of Kenilworth. Many of its fortifications were then destroyed. The man responsible for the implementation of the slighting, Colonel Joseph Hawkesworth, acquired the estate and converted Leicester's gatehouse into a home, and the base court was converted into a farm. Many of the remaining structures were stripped for materials. Hawkesworth was evicted from Kenilworth in 1660 when Charles II was restored to the throne. From here, Kenilworth remained a ruin and was still used as a farm into the 18th and 19th centuries, slowly increasing in popularity as a tourist attraction. Today, visitors are able to visit Kenilworth Castle's ruins and gardens and experience the rich history of these stones. These ruins are breathtaking. The sheer size alone is amazing. The remaining structures are tall, grand and atmospheric. Despite being still very much so ruins, it certainly is amongst the finest ruins I've had the pleasure of visiting. And that brings us nicely to the end of today's video on Kenilworth Castle. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to go ahead and leave a like, subscribe, share this channel with your friends. It really helps us get this content out there as far as we possibly can. And if you don't want to do that, that's perfectly fine as well. Stay tuned for another video coming soon on Warwick Castle, which is only a short drive away from Kenilworth, so we managed to get both of those recorded on the same day. And also, forgive any of my pronunciation blips. I believe I've been pronouncing Jeffrey as Joffrey, and to me that's just too funny to remove. And also, my PC is choking to death on editing this video, so it's just been too painful to be practical. Anyway, with any luck, I'll be seeing you all very soon with another video at some point, but until next time, take care, and goodbye.